Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to Minka Moving Through the Clouds. And as usual, we're doing it together. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're enjoying this day, and I hope that things are going well for you. Today, I come to you with a little bit of a heavy heart because of the topic that I want to talk about. But because emotions are a little bit high at the moment, and I have so much I want to share, I wanted to keep it tailored, so I wrote down what I wanted to say. So if you just bear with me, I will read it out, okay? Because I didn't want to go off script. I went to sleep with a heavy heart, and today I woke up with even a heavier heart, some anger, and the desire to do something. So I asked myself, what can I do? What can I do? I don't have much, but I do have a voice and my mind. So I will use them to speak up, and I will do that. And I will do what I can so that the next person who has something to add to that can do that. They may be better able to take action. I woke up with a heavy heart because of what's happening in Belfast. The violence to people of colour through no fault of their own. One man's action somehow has affected every other black person in their vicinity. I saw on Instagram a story of a woman who has lost her home and couldn't even take her children's letters that they wrote to her when she left home. She only had time to grab her keys, her computer, and the uniform because she still had to go to work. I also saw another woman's post running with her, I also saw another woman's post running with her kids, trying to find a safe shelter because the violence isn't over and she's scared and terrified for her life. I saw another post by a white woman who had just married her husband 2 days ago, who happened to be a Nigerian man and a nurse. He works tirelessly day and night to care for others who are sick. She says he is the most hard-working man she has ever met, and today she had to watch him stay stuck in the house, unable to go to work because they are both terrified for his life. Another woman went on to comment on a similar predicament, and the chain continued. I also heard of an Irish man whose house was set on fire simply because they didn't know he was white. They had mistaken his house for a black person's house. You see, when hate, rage, and anger are allowed to spread and breed, the result is violence. Hate and anger are usually blind. They do not have eyes to see. It's a dangerous dark storm that can take over when it's fueled. That is why there are always casualties of war. The hate and anger that was directed at black people only somehow took some white ones too. If you're black and brown in the UK today and over the last couple of days, I'm sure you must have been worried and terrified, upset and angry, unsure of what your future may look like here in the UK. But let's backtrack and rewind the clock to a couple of months ago. If you're an asylum seeker or refugee, the news must have been extremely worrisome, terrifying, and scary for you. I know it was for me. I remember being worried and sick to my stomach, hearing about some asylum seekers and refugees shelters being attacked and burnt down. I remember the news every day becoming harsher and lots of anger from people towards asylum seekers who, by the way, make up a very small percentage of population and are forced to survive off £49 a week. I do not know anyone who in their right minds would choose such a life if they were given an option to make a living instead. Just to make that clear, but back to my point. I remember the frustration I felt, the anger, and speaking to a few people that I met within my community, and all they had to say was, "Oh, don't worry, it's not as bad as it sounds." Or they would say things like, "It's not going to get so bad, and at least, we stand with you." That did not assure my safety, by the way, or reduced my frustration. People simply shunned our feelings and our fear because it was only affecting asylum seekers and refugees, and most people around don't even know one asylum seeker around them. Then the hate continued to spread, and it started touching migrants who have settled here, and the worry grew, and many migrants started speaking up about their concerns and the unjust ways the government is treating them. Some of them are being asked to send their little children back home, even though some of them were born here. The hate continued to grow and spread wide, and as I suspected, it still continues to grow. Back then, I remember calling a proverb we used to hear when I was growing up that goes, "Idan gemun ɗan uwanka ya kama da wuta, shafawa na karuwa," which translates to, "If your brother's beard catches fire, rub water on yours." I remember thinking, what has the world come to that the politicians are targeting some of the most vulnerable people in society who have been denied their rights to freedom anyway, who have been victims of oppression in many ways? These are people who survived all sorts of violence and injustice, war, abuse, and the worst torments you can imagine. It takes a lot for someone to leave their homes, friends, family, a life they've always known, and run to seek asylum as a result to save their life, and then still face further oppression and injustice. And everybody is somehow fine with that. I remember asking, what has humanity come to? Where is the soul of humanity? Where is the soul in people? Why does no one care? How are we being oppressed even more and no one bats an eye? How are we the pawn in the politicians' game and nobody cares? Where are the marches? Where is the frustration from our brothers and sisters in humanity? Where is humanity? Who dares speak for us and say something? Then it started growing into actual immigrants who unfortunately consider themselves a little bit above asylum seekers and refugees. And then I started hearing a little bit more frustration and anger from people, just a little bit more, not enough. And now that hate has grown and spread, and it's targeting people of color, Sikhs, and Muslims. Anyone who is deemed different or blessed to have a little bit more melanin or culture in them. Do you see how quickly hate grows and spreads? Who do you think will be next? I ask. Because if you think you are safe just because the fire is in your neighbor's house and not yours, you're kidding yourself and awaiting the inevitable. I ask you to ask yourself this question. What are you doing to assure the safety of your brothers and sisters? If you really mean it when you say the majority of people aren't racist or fascist, if you really mean it when you say the majority of people aren't against immigrants and do recognize and appreciate the contribution they make to society, some of these people come here to do the work your people couldn't do and won't do. Caring for your elderly, caring for your sick, caring for those who are vulnerable, and you can't even protect them so they can continue to help. I saw a lot of comments under the post made by the people who were scared for their lives in Belfast, and a lot of the comments were from white people saying things like, "All I have to tell you is that the majority of us aren't racist. I just want you to know a lot more of us are with you." And I thought to myself, it's easy to type these words, isn't it? Yet somehow it doesn't change the reality of this woman scared for her life, for her children's life. You're at home, safe with your family. You know that this won't touch you, at least for now, because you're not the target these people are after. And you say to someone who is terrified for their lives while their house is burning to the ground that just know the majority of us are with you. Do you hope that these words will somehow solve her immediate safety concerns? Do you hope that these words will stop her house from burning down or somehow clear the real imminent danger and threat she is facing? She cannot feel it. She cannot see it because to her it's no longer a game of words. It's a game of action. For her, words don't mean anything at this time. She needs action. If you're a white person who believes you're part of the majority who aren't racist or fascist, I ask you to ask yourself the better question. That is, what am I doing? Because if you're doing nothing, I can assure you and I can promise you that you are part of the problem. I'm sorry, but it is time for the truth. I cannot afford to worry about your feelings when people of my color are being attacked and our safety is in question. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Edmund Burke. In the end, we will not remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Martin Luther King. I challenge and ask every white person, the so-called majority that aren't racist or fascist, where is the march for justice, for peace? How can a few get so violent and are succeeding at overpowering the majority? If I have 10 friends who love me and 2 who hate me, and then the 2 goes on to physically attack me, I would expect my 10 friends to stand up for me and show my 2 hateful friends that they are outnumbered and to stand down. But if my 10 friends who say they love me watch me get hurt and do nothing, then I surely have 0 friends. Because you can also commit injustice by doing nothing. Marcus Aurelius. Neutrality only helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Ellie Wiesel. If your answer is doing nothing, then you are indeed part of the problem, and we can't all afford to do nothing anymore. I have lost many things in my life, including my freedom. I am still facing injustice because of the color of my skin. I fled a lot of injustice and threat to my life, only to come here and be oppressed even further. It's been 6 years and still going since I have been seeking asylum. 6 years of being forgotten and abandoned by the system. So I am not one to be easily shocked, but I have survived everything that I went through so that I cannot see injustice and keep my mouth shut. So that I can never see injustice and choose to do nothing. So while I stand up for myself, I choose to stand up for those who are unable to stand up for themselves because I can't afford to do nothing. I see too much. I feel too much. I care too much. Ask yourself, how much do you care? And if you say you're not part of the problem, then what are you doing to be part of the solution? Because these are times for action, for solutions, and it is certainly time for change. What you refuse to do today will be a problem you will have to face tomorrow. That I can promise you. So ask better questions. Ask, what can we do together for humanity's sake? Just ask that. It's time for us to ask, better questions, to observe more. And if we don't know, ask. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you for watching. And keep asking the right questions. I love you.